So I'm excited. I'm super excited to share what's in my gear locker today. I'm going to highlight a piece. It's a piece of gear that I've always wanted. I've literally wanted this piece of gear since the early 90s. And I acquired this a few years ago. It's called the Oakland Chop. It's a portable Hammond organ, chopped out of its case for the road, portableized for touring. It's a really cool piece of gear. It's made by a man named Bob Sliker, who unfortunately has passed away in the past few years actually. And he made chops for a lot of great artists like Santana or Chester Thompson from the Tower of Power. And they were expensive, very well built, very hard to get, and I was very lucky to acquire one a couple of years ago, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. It's different than my stock B3. It's got a lot of cool features. It's got a solid state preamp in it to make it smaller, more compact to be able to travel, and also to make it tougher on the road. So that changes the sound of it a little bit, but I think in a pretty cool kind of high octane rock and roll way. So I want to show you a couple of the mods and features on it that are different than a traditional B3 and why I love it so much. Let's get into it. So the chopped B3. This is a controversial topic, right? I read comments on YouTube all the time when somebody goes, I just bought this chop, and people are like, why did you do that? Why did you ruin your B3? Why would you destroy this perfectly good instrument? Well, there is a reason why people do this. This organ, I believe, was built to tour with. This organ you can flip on its side, put it in a road case, put a lid over it, roll it onto the tour bus, roll it back in. It's 200 pounds as opposed to 375 pounds. It's just a lot smaller. It's also really cool in the way that the surface of it is larger to accommodate and flatter to accommodate another keyboard to go on top. It's really built to tear down quickly and get onto the bus or into the van quickly. Interesting fun fact is I drive a Toyota 4x4. It's called a Toyota FJ. I can fit this B3 or this Hammond with the Leslie, with the pedals in the back of my Toyota FJ and go to a gig. Not possible, as you know, with a real B3 and a Leslie. So that's kind of the thing with this. You sacrifice the look of the original cabinet. It's a little bit different, but it's much more portable. And he's made some mods to it that make it easier to carry too. Like there's road case handles built right into the cabinet of the organ, which make it easy to carry. It's got a lot of really cool mods, which we'll go through. Things that you can do with it sonically that you just can't do with the B3, so you can kind of stretch the limits or push the limits of what could traditionally be done with the B3, and you can get into some new territory with sounds and effects. So super cool. Not for everybody, but chops are cool, and there definitely is a place for them. So let me show you some of the cool things about this chop. Okay, so I'm going to go through some of the features of this organ. One of the main features about this organ, feature number one, is that it has a Trek 2 solid state preamp in it. The original tube preamp has been replaced. The cool thing about this is a Trek 2 preamp is extremely stable on the road, hard to damage. If you are going to have a problem with a B3 on the road, it's often going to be with the A028 preamp on the B3. Something's going to go wrong. So we've eliminated that in this organ, and we've got a very stable road organ. The Trek 2 preamp also allows for some features that you can't have on a B3. With it, you can have spring reverb. So let's go through that. Really, really cool. At the turn of a button here, I can have reverb. Check it out. So this is great. I mean, so many times in the studio, you're looking for a little bit of reverb or a little bit of air on a sound. You want to do those old kind of Motown stabs. You want to hear that. You can easily get that, and you can adjust it, of course. You can have tons of it, or you can just have a little bit of it. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful spring reverb, and it's built into the organ, so you don't need to ask anybody for reverb in your monitor or try to have an extra reverb pedal. It's just right there on the organ. That is so cool. I love that. In this same cheek block on the organ, most of these features are built into the cheek blocks of the organ. On a traditional B3, you'll just have a black cheek block. There's nothing there, but in these cheek blocks on this organ, you've got a bunch of things. In the bottom cheek block here, we actually have the Leslie switch. So you've got your Leslie slow and fast there. The nice thing about this, if you've ever traveled with Hammond B3s, you know that they have a hand switch, a bakelite hand switch that attaches to the outside of the organ. It's the first thing that breaks when you're moving that B3 through a door. Because a B3 fits just perfectly through a door, but when you put that Leslie switch on, it's just wide enough to knock it off and break it every time. So this eliminates that. The Leslie switch is built into the cheek block. It can never break off, so that's perfect. Another thing that we have, really cool feature on this organ, is it has a break. You know, the first Leslies that were made didn't have slow. They were either off or fast. So that's become a really popular sound in jazz organ, is to have the Leslie just completely stopped. And if you want to do that, you can flick a switch here and break the Leslie. No Leslie at all. It's just stopped. And what's really cool about that is when you put it on fast, it's very dramatic. Then it will go back to a break. So you can have that option, but if you want to just run it like most of us do with just slow and fast, you just turn that on. Cool feature. And then the other cool feature in the bottom cheek block is the percussion volume. You can adjust the percussion volume right here, and you can make it really, really loud. So for instance, I'll get the percussion going. I'll turn it up. Just nasty. So this is really cool if you want to kind of get those. Those green-eyed lady type of sounds. You can get that really aggressive percussion. So that's a pretty cool feature. I like that one. Moving on to the upper cheek block here. Some cool features as far as you have a master volume. Now the preamp on this, because it's solid state, doesn't quite break up in the same way as a normal B3. So you have to give it quite a bit more power to get it to distort. So if you want to have it pretty clean, you can. But if you give it a lot more master volume, it's going to break up nicely. Because of course you're driving the Leslie a little bit more with gain. So that's a nice feature, because you can really modify your gain structure on the fly when you're playing. And then it has a little equalizer here too. It has a treble, which you can roll off or turn way on. And the other cool thing is it's got a bass adjustment, which is great if you're playing bass. bass way up. So if you're playing more trio stuff, that's pretty cool because you can adjust the bass. By the way, on the back of this organ, there's a bass out that you could run to a bass amp. So if you're doing trio stuff, you can really make your bass sound like a bass player, which is cool. Okay, moving on to the final sort of mod within the cheek blocks here. It has vibrato like any organ, which is great, but it also has a coarse depth adjustment, so you can adjust that coarse. So almost like super coarse, right? You can make it really, really dramatic, or normal, or you can back it off. So lots of flexibility with coarse, percussion, EQ, reverb, and Leslie. Really, really cool. So I want to talk a little bit about the quality of the build quality of this organ. That's the first thing that always struck me about them. When I was looking at them online and when I saw pictures of them, I was like, wow, the woodwork is so beautiful. And it still maintains the character of a B3, and what I mean by that is a B3's got a sort of a specific cut to the wood of it on the sides, the way that it's cut. And Bob managed to keep that look. It still has a very B3 look to it. The woodwork is beautiful. I don't know much about wood, but it seems to be a very strong hardwood that he's used. And I've had this on the road a little bit, and it's just, it's very, very tough. It doesn't scratch. It's very durable, and he's put handles into the side of it. This one has these beautiful chrome or steel legs that screw into the bottom of the organ. And the organ, when you're playing it, it isn't moving at all. I mean, it is dead stable. It feels just heavy and stable when you're playing it, like you could stand on top of it, no problem. It's almost like no expense has been spared with this organ, and I feel like it's like the perfect integration of an original B3 and these Trek 2 parts, and this sort of this marriage of Mike at Trek and Bob working together to create this organ. Bob designed the organ, but he leaned pretty heavily on the Trek parts, which are extremely well built and built to last. And you know, Mike's been in the business for over 50 years, modifying organs, building percussion circuits and aftermarket parts for Hammonds, and it has all of his best stuff in this organ. It's really, really impressive. Even on the back, where the Leslies are, it's got a steel plate drilled for two 122 Leslies. You can run two 122 Leslies at one time. The bottom of the organ, where the volume pedal is, you can slide a set of foot pedals in, and it has an umbilical cable which comes up the back from the pedals to the back of the organ and plugs in. It's a multi-pin cable, really heavy duty, because of course all of those wires from all of those pedals have to travel up through that umbilical cord to the organ. So any organ player, a jazz organ player, a rock organ player, if you wanted to play straight up jazz trio B3 stuff on this with the pedals, you can travel with the pedals with this thing. It's got everything. It's just the perfect travel organ. And he managed to do this at about 200 pounds, shaving about 150, 175 pounds off the original B3. So this is a big deal for road work. But I just feel when you look at the thing, the construction of it is just beautiful. It's an absolutely beautiful piece of gear to look at, and I just feel like whoever has these organs in the world, I know that there's a few of them out there. I'm not sure how many are made. I've heard that it's maybe about 80 of these organs. I think whoever has these is very lucky to have one of these very special instruments that was built by a man that clearly put his whole heart into building this. Another really cool feature that's included on this Hammond that I feel a lot of people would really like is it's got an effects loop. so you can run whatever you want in line in this organ, like a wah pedal, a distortion pedal, a delay. You could literally have you could have almost an effects board on top of this thing, and just be trying things and really pushing the boundaries. Currently I have a wah pedal on here, and it's pretty cool. Just an example of just a simple, effect that you can put in line, and of course you can do a ton of cool things with that. I love that, and really easy to use. Just off the back plate, just 1/4-inch cables, boom, boom, you're in. Super cool. So this organ originally started its life out as a Hammond A100. Now, as many of you know, the B3 is not the only Hammond that has that circuit. There's the B3, the C3, the A100, the D152, and the RT3, and they all are basically the same organ. The A100 was the same as a B3, it just had an internal speaker. This originally started its life as an A100, and as far as I know, it was very common for Bob to use A100s to chop because they were less desirable than B3s, and if you have an original B3 cabinet, you're probably less likely to chop it as it's worth more money. But there's no doubt that he was taking these organs and repurposing them and pushing the boundaries of what could be done with Hammonds. And I feel like there's still a lot of people doing this. There's Mike at Track 2 still constantly building parts where you could take an old, a Model A or a CV or a B2 or a C2, and he'll give you the circuit to put percussion into it. Some of those organs would make great organs to chop, and there's a lot of people that are still chopping organs. BB organ. There's a guy that owns a company called Boss Organ that I've been looking at his stuff. He's making stuff called the Lunchbox and a whole bunch of really cool mods to B3s and Leslies, and it's just cool to see guys continually pushing it and seeing what they can do with the old technology to make it even cooler. But it's become obvious to me that lots of people are coming around to playing Hammonds, and there's just tons of clones, tons of chops, and it's a thing. It's like a resurgence of Hammond organ, and it makes me super happy to watch young people hopping onto these things and getting interested in these things, because it is definitely one of the coolest instruments on the planet, period. So awesome. It's good to see that happening. So thank you for listening to me as I ramble on about my gear collection and my Oakland chop that I love. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments about your chops or any modifications that you know of, or what you think of the Oakland chop, or if you have any more information on Oakland chops, because there's people that knew Bob, and there's people that have these organs, and I would love to learn more and hear about it. I'm looking forward to going through more of the pieces in my gear locker with you. Thanks a lot. We'll catch you next time.
So how many pieces of gear do you think you have?
I mean, it's the same amount of gear that I told you I had last year.
Yeah, right.
In order to justify this collection, I'm going to make a really, educational series of videos in which I highlight these keyboards and I'm able to keep them.
Oh, that's what this is about. Let's just take what's off the wall. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Each one is special, and of course I can't sell any of them, because what if I were to need one of them?
What if I were to need one?